Welcome to another episode of Wholesome Thinking. The main objective of our conversations is to challenge people's minds and stimulate wholesome thinking by utilizing the gifts that God gave us. This platform is inspired by scriptures, spiritual journeys, perspective, and life. It's important to us that we highlight these conversations to help encourage others on their journeys and provide perspective. In 2 Peter chapter 3 it says, "Dear friends, this is now my second letter to you. I have written both of them as reminders to stimulate you to wholesome thinking." If you ever want to join us on the Wholesome Thinking podcast, please contact us on Instagram, TikTok, or our YouTube channel. Our handle is Wholesome Thinking Pod on all platforms. We encourage everyone to reach out to us, not only to join us, but to provide us feedback or tell us about other topics you would like to hear us talk about on this platform. Our main rules on this platform are commitment, creativity, no cursing, prayer, and no judgment. Appreciate everybody for tuning in to episode 13. Today we talking about faith. This is the second time we talk about faith, so this will be faith part 2. But appreciate everybody for tuning in to episode 13. How y'all fellas doing this week?
Good, bro. Good. How y'all doing? Welcome back, JG. Happy to have you back.
What's up, fellas? Great to be back. Missed y'all, man.
JG being back, pop out the elevator again, boy. That boy was hard. That's clear. We good.
You ain't lying. That boy is smiling, cheesing hard as always being back on this week too. Man, welcome back, bro.
Glad to have you back, man.
Yes, sir. Missed y'all. Glad to be back.
Facts. How did it feel just sitting out 1 week on break, bro? What was that like, man?
I'm telling you what, bro. It was much needed. Like, I really just got to relax and have fun and recharge. Soon as I touch back down, I've just been ready to go, bro. I actually been thinking about this pod ever since I got back, man. I was just like, man, I listened to episode 12 like 4, 5, 6, 7, like so many times, bro. And then like fast forwarding, rewinding, and I just missed y'all boys, man. So I couldn't wait to get back and pod with y'all for real.
Word, man. Well, welcome back, bro. Welcome back.
Welcome back. Happy to have you.
Yes, sir. Rel, how you doing today, man?
Doing good, man. Doing good. A little tired. Had a long road trip during the weekend, but I'm glad to be back with y'all boys, man. Good seeing y'all.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. So we appreciate everybody again for tuning in to episode 13. Today we talking about faith again. We're gonna let Spence start us off today. Spence, tell everybody kind of what your thoughts is about faith part 2.
Okay, so it's kind of geared towards something that I've personally been kind of going through over the past couple weeks, maybe a month or so. And just to give it a little background, I'm wired as like a problem solver or in solution based. So when a roadblock or a problem is presented with me, I immediately look for a way to solve it, a solution, some way to get past that roadblock. And that goes for me personally and people that I care about. So here recently I've been going through something where somebody I care about has been going through something, and I felt kind of helpless in being able to help solve that problem for them. And I think it's easier when it's me going through the tough times, the roadblock, the problem. But when it's somebody I care about, for instance, my wife or my family, my friends, it's harder for me to kind of like not be able to do anything or be in a situation where I can't help them out. And so over the past couple of weeks, it's just something I've been dealing with, been talking to my wife about it, my parents, and then every Sunday, my mom sends this sermon from my home church, sermon and text, and the pastor this past Sunday, his subject was "Let God be God in your life," and it kind of clicked for me right there. I think it was God's timing where like that kind of hit home for me personally for what I was going through, because the way that I took that was I can't control everything. Sometimes you have to jump out on faith, and no matter what you're going through, even when you can't see the outcome, and just trust God and let God be God in your life, because that's what he's there for, instead of trying to control everything and trying to make your own path. And that's kind of what I've been dealing with the past couple of weeks. And I just wanted to pose this question to you all. When you hear the phrase "let God be God in your life," what does that make you think of, or how does that make you feel?
I'll probably say for me, it makes me think of Stop trying to do everything yourself. Stop trying to play the role that you shouldn't play. And I feel like when I'm doing that the most is when I'm trying to control like uncontrollables, right? Or I react to uncontrollables. And for me, I think that's where that phrase really, like when I hear that, that's where I'm like, okay, I need to take a step back because I'm trying to do more than I should be doing instead of just playing my role and doing exactly what I'm supposed to do. And I think that's almost kind of why my word of the year is release. And with the release, what I'm trying to do is stop having so much control over everything and have control over what God put me to do. But then, like you said, let God be God and let Him handle what He has to handle on that side, and just have faith that as long as I'm controlling what I can control, then that's all I need to do, and everything else, in a sense, is going to work itself out. And I think sometimes I still struggle with that control piece of just trying to have a grip on everything and bringing it all in to the point where I'm trying to be in the sense, the dictator of it all by trying to have my hands or my footprints over everything that I'm seeing, everything that I'm doing, instead of saying, step back, let me release some of this stuff, and focus on what I'm supposed to focus and let God just do what He has to do, and not try to play His role. So that's definitely kind of, when I hear that, that's kind of like the route that I'm thinking of, or that's where my mind goes to for it. And it's something that I'm still working on. Like, even though my word is release, I still got to work on it every day. When you pose this question now, like, it immediately hit me like, yeah, that's exactly why my word was released. So I appreciate that, man.
Absolutely. And just real quick before Rail and JJ you go, Shad, do you find it easier to release things when it's just you going through it, and or is it easier the same when it's people that you care about going through things and you can't do anything to help them, but except for control the controllables?
So for me, it's probably easier now for things involving me. I'm very similar to you. I care about the people in my life. I want to make sure that they're straight. And if something's going on, I want to do what I can to help them. But I do understand that I can't always do that. And I think that's something with me growing and changing over the years where that's been a little bit easier. Again, it's still as my word of the year for a reason because I'm still working on it. But I think over the years, I've been able to realize when something's a controllable and when something's not a controllable, and how I've been able to manage it and kind of make it easier for myself in a sense.
I appreciate that, Shad. I appreciate that response. Go ahead, Rail.
I think for me it means a lot of different things. Like the time that when you text us the topic, I was kind of like, I'm not really. I'm going through that right, like in real time when you message us that. So I definitely connected with it. But for me, it just means like surrender everything. But in the time that you sent it, I think I even texted y'all. This was like, man, I'm starting to get anxious with the things going on in my life and all of our lives right now, and I just want to make sure the things that I'm talking about on this platform, I'm living. And to be real with you, I wonder what God is thinking about me where I am right now in my life, and am I actually surrendering and fully surrendering to what He's asking me to do, and just being able to believe in His Son Jesus and be able to spread the word as much as I can. But just being able to live it, I think, is difficult for me to fully surrender, bro. I think I struggle when it comes to death. So for me, it's going to be a lot of things that I think about that really surround death. And like when people die, man, like it's a pain that nobody can ever experience. And I always question, like I questioned James with this, and I questioned Jerron with this before. Like, I wonder why God didn't give Jesus a wife. You know what I'm saying? Or like anything like that, because that's different, bro. But in the same token, He feels what we feel already. He knows what we're gonna go through. He understands us. So just being able to know that I need to lean on Him through all things is a difficult concept for me to apply on a daily basis. I may do it sometimes, but I do struggle, and I just want to be transparent about that. So when you brought up this topic, I'm like, this might be time to like share what I'm kind of struggling with when it comes to surrendering my control, or surrendering and fully believing in everything, because I feel like I'm just toting the line right now. I'm not fully on one side or fully on the other side. I kind of just straddle the line. So it's hard for me to surrender, bro, all the way. And I'm struggling with that right now in my walk in certain areas. I wouldn't say all of them. I'm feeling like I'm getting better in some areas in my faith, But when it comes to fully surrendering all things every single day of my life, it's very, very difficult. And I think I'm hard on myself. I think God knows all of us, but I think we put the pressure on ourselves. Kind of shy said the other day, like, just don't put pressure on yourself. And I think we end up doing it just because of the things that we've been through, and we want to be so successful at everything. But faith doesn't really work like that. It's not a successful thing. It's a lifestyle that you have to be willing to submit and be obedient to, and just be under all authority at all times. And I think that's a tough standard to live by. You know, if we being real, we can't just say that like, oh, I believe in Jesus, everything okay. Like, nah, you dealing with some real stuff on a day-to-day basis. And when life start happening, you start to question things, and you feel like you need to create a solution. And I feel like a lot of us are very solution focused people. So I think we've always been able to figure out different things, different alternatives and stuff like that. And I would say that I think I'm the opposite compared to, like, y'all was talking about, do you feel that it when it impacts people, do you adjust? And I feel like I'm the opposite. I feel like I do well by telling people like, it's not in your control, it's going to be okay, but I don't apply it for myself, and therefore I don't know if I'm living the standard. And I know I'm hard on myself, but I do want to get better in that area, because bro, it's a struggle, man. And I'll give another example. Like, this weekend, I was going to Philadelphia with my mom, and we was going to a funeral or whatever. And ironically, one of her friends from her block, their parent had passed away or whatever, and my mom's parents had passed away. So just being able to dialogue with her and kind of still see some of that pain that she's going through. I get back in the car to drive. I drop her off, and then I get back in the car and I start driving back home. It's like probably a 40-minute drive from my parents' crib. And bro, it's like this wave of pain just came upon me, and I just start yelling at God, like, I start thinking about my parents not being on this earth, and I said, like, this is why I can't surrender fully, God. Like, tell me how I'm gonna get through this right now. Like, I need to know. And I'm just boohoo crying, bro. And it's like, in that moment, it's like, I'm not gonna be able to control anything. I'm not gonna be able to do anything in this world to, like, get that moment back, or I literally am disabled in a way. And I think God does those things to make us focus on Him. We have no other choice but to surrender and choose Him every single day after those things happen. But if we choose Him before it happens, I think it will be better. But bro, I was struggling with that so bad, and I just kept talking to him, and I'm just crying, snot running down my nose. Like, it was a bad situation for real. Like, just driving, and then my wife called me, and I felt like that was His way of saying, I've already blessed you with something else for that moment, but I need you to look to me first. Don't worry about all these things. Like, I have somebody that's going to be in your life even after your parents are no longer here. And I think He was listening in that moment. And that helped me settle down a little bit more, because honestly, bro, I was losing it in that car by myself. And I think it was because I started to understand, like, I'm not going to have a choice but to surrender in that moment. So I really appreciate that topic, and I'm going to have to let God be God in my life compared to telling somebody else about it.
No, yeah, I appreciate that. And something that stuck out what you said was you struggle with surrendering everything to Him. And I'm the same way. There's like certain things that it's easy for me to surrender to God. God, I know you got this. You're gonna take care of it. You're gonna make a way like you always do. And then there's certain things that are hard for me. And I guess this is the next step in my faith walk with surrendering everything to Him, because it comes to some situations where I'm like, God, I don't know. I'm struggling here. I'm struggling here. So my question for you is, what makes it easier to surrender some things compared to others? For me, I think it might be the level of the magnitude of the situation, I guess. Small things are a little bit easier to lean into God and have faith, but the bigger the magnitude of the situation is, for me, it makes it harder for me to onto my faith, which is the next step that I need to make.
Yeah, I'm right there with you, bro. And I think the word, I can't remember what scripture, but like, it says lean on Him through all things, bro, and not on your own understanding. And that is what hits home when it really does say all. It doesn't say some. It doesn't say just a couple things. It says all things. But I do think, for me, I'm with you. It depends on the situation. It depends what type of person is involved. It depends on what I'm going through. It depends on how it's impacting me. And that's why I think it's written to say depend on him for all things. But it is difficult because we are not perfect people. We're not Jesus, and I don't think we're able to do that. But we can continue to practice the same principles and have faith in him every day consistently, and just to be obedient to the scripture and what it's saying and apply it. And I think when we start speaking those words out loud in those times, I think the Holy Spirit is already in us, but it just starts being a sword in the community, and you don't have to worry about putting so much pressure on yourself. And that's where I think I just need to improve at in my faith journey and my faith walk right now, and just being able to apply and speak the word when I'm going through those tough times, so I could get that calmness of the spirit in my life. Because if I don't depend on him, I'm going to depend on other things that try to make me feel better, and that's really not the answer when you're going through, regardless of what situation.
No, I appreciate that, Real. JG, what you got for me? Because y'all helping me is y'all might not know it, but y'all helping me a lot right now. So I appreciate it.
Yeah. So that was actually Segway King. Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Do not depend on your own understanding. Seek his will in all you do, and he will show you which path to take. So for me, that one hits home as well. I think another translation says, in all your ways acknowledge him. But not depending on my own understanding is tough, because that's really my default. And I think over the years, I've developed a way to kind of figure out situations, whether it be just in family interactions or my personal life, or even in coaching, where you kind of have to strategize and figure things out on the fly. I kind of would lean more on that skill or ability than I would on God. And I would trust my own way of thinking, and trust in my ability to figure out solutions to many different types of situations. Now, of course, everyone is going to run into situations that you just can't figure out. There's no precedent in your life for some things that you encounter, and your own understanding is not going to help you. And so I think that that's what the scripture is speaking to right there, is like, humble yourself for real. And that's my word of the year, is humility. It's just humble yourself before God. And Matthew says, seek him first. Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all these things will be given unto you. And there's countless examples of, when I was preparing for the episode and looking over the different scriptures, the wording is so intentional. All of it really involves seeking God first, humbling yourself before God, not leaning on your own understanding, not thinking that your way is the best way, submitting to his will, submitting your will to his will. That's what Jesus said in Luke, not my will, but yours be done, as he was getting ready to be arrested and eventually crucified. So even in that moment, Jesus submitted to the will of the Father, not leaning on Jesus's own understanding, not leaning on his own understanding, but submitting to the will of his Father in a moment where he was about to sacrifice his life for the very humans that were coming to arrest him and crucify him. So knowing what was going to happen and still submitting his will to the will of God is a powerful example of how we're supposed to live our lives, in submission to the will of our Father in heaven. And we learn that and reinforce that by staying in the Word. So over the past year or so, that's been one of the main lessons for me, is to submit my will to God's will and not lean on my own understanding, not be so prideful that I think I can figure everything out on my own, and not ask for help or need help, or turn to God and seek his direction and his guidance. So that's what that means to me.
I appreciate that, JG. And real quick, just a follow-up question: Are the Are there times now where there are situations that arise that are harder for you to kind of submit everything to God? And if there are, what is I guess the process of kind of dealing with that and working through that?
Yeah, for sure. So many. what is difficult for me at times, and I'm sure for everyone in the busyness of life and taking care of all of our responsibilities and obligations that we have, whether it be work, personal, family, whatever the case may be, is being sensitive to the guiding voice of the Holy Spirit. And so when you are in the midst of a busy day or a family get together, or even when you're just with friends having fun and you hear that small voice, that whisper, it's almost like, what is it, a still soft voice, they call it. And you could miss it. And even if you hear it, for me, if I'm being transparent, it's easy to be like, man, I don't really want to do that. Or, yeah, I'm not sure if that's, and you catch yourself, really. Fortunately, you could catch yourself kind of back talking. Would that be that? I don't know if that's the correct term, but just really questioning the God of the universe, who has your best interest at heart, who will never leave you nor forsake you, who knows the plans that he has to prosper you, not to harm you, right? You're now questioning, not whether or not it is his voice, but whether or not what you're hearing is the correct thing for the situation that you're in. And so, again, discerning that voice and whether or not that's of God or somewhere else comes from being in his word. And if it aligns with his word, then that's what we're supposed to follow. A more tangible example, a general example would be parenting. Man, like I'm guilty of fighting that voice a lot in the course of parenting, for real. I really do be thinking like I have the answer in the moment. That don't be blown up in my face, bro. I'm telling you. So like I just be sometimes having to learn the hard way there. But a more tangible example recently was just feeling like I should fast for a period of time to draw closer to God and to really get some insight and wisdom and direction for what's ahead in my life. And, it was very specific this time. And I was just kind of like, I've never fasted in this way before. And so I was a little bit nervous, but I was reassured by the Spirit that this was something that I needed to practice for what was ahead. And it really centered around Proverbs chapter 3, verse 5 and 6, not leaning on my own understanding, trusting in the Lord with all my heart, trusting in him to sustain me over the course of the fast, trusting that I would be drawn closer to him, that I would receive divine instruction and wisdom from him in the course of the fast while still being sustained by his word, which ended up being what happened. And it was a constant, like, just really quiet in my flesh through the process, because I definitely wanted to stop several times. But I do think that, like, I'm thankful that God sustained me and gave me the strength to endure, because I genuinely did not know that my body could do that before going through with this last fast that I did. And knowing that God will see me through that, something that I had never done before, where there was, again, no precedent for me to lean on, like, all right, I've done this before, so this shouldn't be a big deal. There was none of that. It was just straight up, I got to trust in you. Like, I have no other choice. And when it was verbalized and when I saw it in those terms, it was very clear that needed to happen. So, but at first I was scared. I was skeptical, but again, God brought me through it and he sustained me. And, I'm thankful. I'm thankful that he gave me the strength to go through with that.
I appreciate that, JG. And something that you said stuck out to me was being sensitive to the voice of the Holy Spirit, which I think after my mom sent me that sermon and through the rest of that week, God sent me signs and evidence that he was working. And I can't remember the scripture, but that's in the Bible, signs and evidence. But it was signs and evidence that he sent me, that he was, whether it's him speaking to me or just sending little signs that I'm on the right path, that he's working it on my behalf, and that just continue to trust in me, have faith in me. You're going down the right way. Just keep having faith. And when you're doing that, it makes first it eases your spirit and makes it a little bit easier, I would say, to have that faith when you're going through those tough situations. At least for me personally, over this past week or two. And I think I mentioned this to Rail the other day that I was like, God, is this what you wanted me to see? Is this what you wanted me to see after going through this? So I appreciate that, JG.
For sure.
Hey, I think some of the stuff that y'all are saying kind of goes back to when I was talking about the needs times faith equals motivation, right? And like think about like your fast, JG. Like you knew why you wanted to do it, why you needed to do it, what it was going to do for you, and you, like you said, you never had no idea doing a fast like that was going to be like. But you had faith that God was going to provide for you what you needed, and you motivated, you did it. And that's kind of some of the stuff that y'all been saying today just kind of applies that concept in it. And that's, in a sense, that's let's letting God be God, because you're focusing on what the need is and you're just going out and walking it out because God already has it for you. And you not trying to overstep, you just trying to walk it out because God already has a plan for you. And that's the faith part of it, right? And so I think kind of, what some of y'all are saying right now is in a sense lined up with that, which is cool to see, right? Because it's something that I'm always talking about is need times faith equals motivation, and how it allows you to stay in your lane when things are unknown instead of trying to do too much, and you just focus on what you have to focus on and have faith that everything is going to be taken care of as it should and as it will be, and then you're good to go from there. So I just wanted to make that connection because I was just hearing that all over it throughout all your story, actually.
I appreciate you saying that, Shad. Now let me get a flip side of the fast, the other side, okay? So JG like, all right, bro, what you gonna do it? And I'm like, let me see. You know what I'm saying? Let me figure out my week. And so I try to start on that Wednesday. And it's so interesting because a fast can teach you some stuff about God, whether you make it through or don't. And I'm realizing that as JG talking, like, bro, I actually learned some stuff just attempting to fast 3 times. Like, I didn't make it through, but half a day. The other times I made it and then said, no, I'm not doing it. So the first day I make it to like 7 o'clock p.m. I'm good, solid. I get home and Janae was like, come on, you said we was eating pizza tonight. I was like, you right. Let me go ahead and eat the pizza. Fold it, right? So I think I gotta go on the road with my mom to Philly. So my weekend was Philadelphia Friday, Williamsburg Saturday, and Baltimore on Sunday. I drove everywhere, right? So I said, I'm gonna try again on Friday. And my mom was like, oh, you fasted today? I said, yeah. Come on, we gonna get a cheesesteak today. Like, what are you gonna want to get a cheesesteak, right? And so I fold again. Okay, I fold again. Saturday, I knew I was going to see my boy Steve, and I hadn't seen him in like 6 years for real. But I just saw him for my wedding, but really spent time with him. So I like, God, just let me get the Monday. Like, it's all good, bro. I do it again today. Something happened with my money and my finances today, and so I was like, I'm folding again. And so for what I'm going through right now is like, why am I unable to start and finish? And I think he's just talking to me in different ways, like just be still and trust in me through all things. But if you listen to my example, that is who I am. I'm always gonna fold for others. If somebody else is involved, I'm gonna do because I want to make them feel good, and I'm gonna feel good too. And I always end up putting people before God, bro. And that is so. That was such a learning. I'm listening to Jerron. I'm like, man, I did learn some stuff even with me attempting to try. So I wonder what really happened if I followed all the way through. And I think that's just a testimony to indicate that God don't need us to do something spectacular. He just needs us to try over and over again. He's going to continue to talk to us. But if we don't ever try, he'll act like he don't know us. And you might get to them at them gates, JG. And he'd be like, depart from me, I never knew you. And I'm just not trying to be there at all. Like, and this today was like, I gotta keep trying. Even if I just get through 2 days, even if I get through half a day, like I just have to keep trying and get into a certain level of faith that I know I can get to. but also to honor God with my obedience. And I think that's tough. It's not simple. It's not easy. But I did want to share, like, it's okay if you failing. He just wants you to try and talk to him and engage with him in conversation. And he's still gonna try to teach you them different signs that Spencer is talking about. He's gonna send them your way. When you try to talk to him, he's gonna send you something. And I think a lot of the times we spend so much time not trying that we forget what trying even feel like, or we forget what he has done for us. So for my examples, God could just be like, I could take your mom from here, I could take your friend from here, I could take where you was going on, I could take all of that from you. Why would you not try to get closer to me during this process of everyday life? And I think also a problem is we think we just have time, bro. We always think we have time to do it tomorrow. Oh, I could do it tomorrow. Oh, I can do it tomorrow. No, this isn't losing weight. This isn't a diet. This isn't, trying to save money. This is something totally different. And I think God just really wants us to know that in so many different ways when he try to communicate with us. But we just have like the veil on and we just kind of block it out a lot of the times. And I think it's tough.
That's crazy you said that, Real. You said putting people and others before God. And that was the text of this sermon my mom sent. Exodus 20:3. Thou shalt not have no other gods before me. And it's crazy the connection, because that's the other side of it. Let God be God in your life. You can't let other things be God. You can't let money, friends, family, all these other factors be ahead of God in your life. You have to let God be the head of your life, and everything else will fall in order. Go ahead, JG. I ain't mean to cut you
No,
off.
no, I was just gonna say like that. That's important for people to hear and understand, is that in the course of our lives we're gonna do more failing than we succeed. So you got to know that God is speaking to you through it all. Like if your heart is set on God, then he's gonna guide you through your successes and your failures. And so it's important for people to hear that, like, even though you weren't able to complete the fast in the way that you anticipated, you were still learning. God was still teaching you things about yourself and about others, even though you didn't see the desired outcome of the fast. The desired outcome of the fast really is to get closer to God and to learn from him and to hear his voice. So if you're hearing from him and he's teaching you, even in those moments where you feel like you came up short, that's still a win. Like the old saying, we don't lose, we learn. So again, like your perceived failure is still, you still learn from that. Like God was still able to teach you something from that. And it takes me back to what's been another recurring theme in life for me lately, at least, is like I keep coming across God just using people and what they have in just extraordinary ways. And it takes me back to the Moses when he's talking to God in the burning bush, and God's like, "What's that in your hand?" And Moses had a staff in his hand. And, God told him, throw it on the ground. It turned to a snake. Then he said, pick it up by the tail, and it turned back into his staff. And so basically what he's showing Moses is like, as long as you're submitted to me, I can use you and whatever you have for my glory. I can deliver you. I can deliver whom I choose with whatever you have. As long as you're surrendered to me, submitted to my will, then I can use you. There was another example in Judges, Shamgar. This guy, this is one of the most noteworthy one verse stories it has to be. I don't even know if there's another story that's only one verse in the Bible. This dude, all it says about him in Judges 3:31 is Shamgar, son of Anath, rescued Israel. He once killed 600 Philistines with an ox goad. And so an ox goad is like, it's a stick that's pointed on one end and blunt on the other. So he killed 600 Philistines with that. 600. So an extreme but powerful example of God just using what's in somebody's hand. And when his spirit comes on you and he wants to use you, he can use you in a very powerful and mighty way if you'll allow him and if you'll submit to him in obedience.
Okay, all right. Okay, JG. So I'm gonna challenge y'all with this question, because I'm in a keep it real like mode right now. So because I wanna really, because I really struggle with this, and other people do too. Listening to that, JG, Shad and Spence, what JG just said, being obedient. Why is it so difficult for us to apply that word when death and money are involved? Why do we start acting foolish when death and money are involved? And I want to bring y'all closer to the point I want to make later on after I listen to y'all is something to think about. And I talked to JG about this, like, what would really come out of us if we couldn't see and we couldn't hear when we were born. So if we were deaf and blind when we were born, what would really come out of us? And I don't know. I think death and money would impact us differently if we never saw or heard about it. So what do y'all think about that? Why is it so difficult to be obedient in this world, in America or wherever else? It don't even really matter. Money is money, right? So why does death and money make us act foolish or get us off the obedient path of faith?
I would say for my initial thought, it's probably because those are two of the biggest things that have the most control over people in general, right? The only people, when you come to this earth, you only got your family. You got your family and you got God. As you grow up, you continue to have your family, and then when they're gone, the one thing you've had your whole life is now taken from you. Now, when it comes to money, money has a different type of control over people because money is what you have, in a sense, an object that is in life that you had to have. But at the same time, it has control over everything that we do in our life. Every decision that we make revolves around some type of form of income, whether it's us providing or somebody else providing. And it kind of goes to what Spencer was saying at the very beginning. Those are two things that you can't have any control. You can't have control over, like, death in a family. You can't have control over if something's going to cost something. And I think because of that, these are two of the, and I'm not going to say that we make our families like a false idols or anything like that, but we do make money an idol. And we make the attachment of a relationship with our family an idol. And that's kind of the part that we have the hard part with, because we become so attached to them and not understanding that we're not letting God do what God needs to do and take him to the kingdom because we want to keep them here with us. And it's the same way we want to keep money with us because we don't want to let it go. And with both of those, neither one of those are things that we want to let go. So because of that, it's so hard when things become there where we don't even feel like sometimes we even have control. And that's sometimes where our discipline may lack, or our fears may come, or we take our attention off of God when it comes to these things. And a lot of the times, it's especially with money, it's the love of the money, right? We talked about that at the very, very beginning when we very first started the pod episode 2. We talked about the love of the money is the root of all evil, and it's because when it has so much control in your life, or your attachments have so much control in your life, it makes you act and do things differently and have a different perspective that you probably shouldn't have. I think this is particular to money because I remember when we did the holiday episode, I told you, Rel, like I don't have as much experience like with death that y'all have, so I don't really know my initial reaction is going to be if my mom or my pops is gone and stuff like that. I don't know, but I do know how it's been when I didn't have control over money, and how every decision that I made revolved around money, and that wasn't a good feeling. That was not the feeling that I wanted to have in my life, and that was something that caused me to, I'm not going to say move away from God, but definitely take my attention off, because instead of having faith that he was going to provide, it was, where am I going to make sure I can pay this bill, or where am I going to buy this meal, or where I'm going to be able to do whatever I have to do that costs with money, in a sense that instead of just saying, hey, like, stop trying to control what you can't control. You have what you have. You need to figure that out. You need to learn from it, and you need to just focus on God and let God handle that. And because the lack or the potential loss of both of those, it makes people, I believe, lose focus or lose direction on what they need to have as the main focus in their life. I hope that kind of makes sense. I know it was a kind of long way of saying it, but I hope that kind of makes sense, kind of how I'm explaining it.
No. You really explained it well. I appreciate you, bro. And I'm gonna get back to that idols. I think we do idolize our family and money. I think that's where that power of control comes from. But I'm gonna let JG and Spence go. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm along the same lines of Shad. I wrote down when you asked that question, I wrote down, I think it's the emotional attachment that everyone has to it. I think it's when family and death and money are involved, our emotions it get to playing with our emotions, and when we get emotional, we don't think logically. We start making decisions based on emotion rather than logic, or leaning into God and our faith. So I think when those two combined are involved, it just like Real said, it makes people act foolish, get out of their norm, so to speak. So I think it's just the emotional attachment that a lot of people have to those two things.
Okay, appreciate that, Spence. What you thinking, JG?
Well, so I think when it comes to death, it has a lot to do with the fact that we don't really know what's on the other side. We can have faith that we will be with God. We can have faith in His Word and what it says in regard to life after death, but we don't know that for certain, right? We don't, no one's ever seen it and then come back to tell us like, hey, like this is what is on the other side when you pass away. So I think that fear of the unknown, you can die and have, strong faith that you will be in heaven with God, but we don't know what that looks like. And we just know, like I said, no one's ever seen it and come back to tell others about it. So that's a real unknown. All we have in that regard is faith. So we can't really, like you said, control it, and we just don't know what that looks like once until we get there. So with money, I'm actually listening to or going through the process of listening to Michael Todd's series on Don't Worship Wealth, or excuse me, it's called Wicked, the Worship of Wealth. And at one point in one of his messages, he says God only compared himself to one thing in the Bible. Now, I haven't done my research, so I don't know this to be certain. I'm just going off what he said in his sermon. He said the only thing God compared himself to in the Bible is money. When he said that you can't love God and money, or you can't worship God and money, you'll love one and hate the other. So I think that kind of speaks to the money aspect right there. Is like, and honestly, how do we feel about working a job? I mean, I earned that money. That's my what we call it, hard earned money. No matter what your job is, it's hard earned, right? Don't matter if you work from home and sit down all day long. Hard earned money. Okay? So we've kind of fallen into that pattern of like, okay, like I worked hard for this, and taking ownership of your finances in a way that can be dangerous from a spiritual perspective. Because now it's like when things happen, as they are known to do, whether it be your car repairs or some kind of medical emergency, whatever the case may be, where you're spending money that you weren't expecting to spend in the first place, you inevitably get into this scramble. Like, okay, I gotta move some things around. I gotta tighten up here. I gotta do this, that, and the third to get to the next paycheck, because this was an unexpected expense. I didn't account for this. And so, I didn't account for whatever it costs. And so rather than stewarding your finances in a way that honors God and trusting Him with your wealth and with your earnings, you feel like that's your money and you worked hard for it and you can do whatever you want to do with it. And let me not speak as if I haven't been guilty of this plenty of times in the past. Like, I think, go back to the episode where I'm talking about all the shoes and stuff. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's not stewarding my wealth properly, but at the same time, that's the mindset I had. Is like, man, like I can tell you plenty of times I've had that exact tangible thought. Man, this is my money. What am I thinking twice about? This is mine. This came from my job. This was my direct deposit. Like, and listen to how crazy that sounds when you verbalize it, right? Especially as a married man with 2 kids. My money. Like, that's crazy. But that's kind of where we get into if we're not careful about how we approach money from a spiritual perspective, and we don't allow it, if we allow it to become an idol. And money is one of the easier ones to let become an idol in your life. Man, I mean, you could fall right into that, and now here you are going back and forth again, you're going back and forth with the God of the universe over what to do with a gift that he bestowed upon you. Like, really, like how you get the job, who blessed you with the job, who blessed you with the opportunity to make that paycheck. So like it's a gift. Every good thing and every perfect thing is a gift from above, coming down from the Father of lights. So when you have that perspective, you're just returning to him what he already gave you in the first place when it comes to money.
Hey, JG, I think you speak it because this takes me all the way back to when we talked about this on the pilot episode, man. And it's crazy because it's like a full circle moment. Because in that young married couples group I told y'all that we got started, we're reading God, Money, and Me now, and we're trying to shift that perspective of what money actually is and how it's more like, one, how do you properly steward money, but two, understanding that this is something that God provided to us, and how does money work with God in our life. And it's understanding, like you said, stewardship, like proper stewardship of the finances, but also that it, like you said, it's not ours to even begin with. And so it's so cool to be able to know that we started the pod. We were talking about this. We're here again. We're talking about false idols with money, and now it's like this whole young married couples group that's going to be doing the same thing and learning from it too. Like it's just it's good. It's great how God works, and it's an important thing because I think it is like you mentioned, it's one of the easiest things to become an idol in your life because you're so fixated on it, and most people are so fixated on earning so much more instead of, like you said, stewarding what you already have so God can bless you with more and more abundantly anyway if you do it the proper way. And so yeah, I'm excited to continue to go through that book again, and just continue to remind myself and remember and not just know what God has money for us for and what it's designed actually for, and not this hard-earned mindset that you're mentioning, right? That it's just all of mine and I just got to take it in and keep it for myself, but actually I need to steward it right and give back to God what belongs to him because he gave it to me to begin with. So I appreciate you for bringing that, because I always say it's not what you know, it's what you remember, and it's just like it's all flooding back in now. So I appreciate that, man.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that shot and bringing that back. I'm sitting over here just listening, and I gotta be careful how I verbalize this, but I'm gonna take my time with it. The devil has an easy job listening to y'all. All he has to do is show us something very small, and we'll do it. Like, we would do it obliviously, without hesitation, and he makes every situation about the individual, and he'll make you start saying stuff crazy out your mouth, like JG is talking about. Like, I earn this money. I'm not tithing. Do you know what I did for this, Pastor? Do you know what I did for this, bro? Like, I can't do that, bro. I can't do that. And I think, like, I'm just sitting over here listening to, like, things that I've done personally, and it's like, dang, the devil has the easiest job to just trick you in a quick moment and then leave you. And then you low-key, like, all you really gonna think about is God after you don't do it anyway. Which means that God is really is really undefeated when you really break that down. Because you're still gonna end up thinking about the better thing to do with your life, no matter what circumstance you're gonna be in. You know deep down that you should make a different type of decision than the decision that you have been making for yourself. But you just don't want to say that it's God, really deep down. And I think, like, that's why I say the devil has an easy job to distract us continuously every day, because we idolize our family. We idolize having assets. We idolize being able to buy luxury things. We idolize having a good paying job. We idolize all these things. And I think it just breaks it down to where God is like, I told you not to idolize nothing from this earth, or you're going to get lost. You're going to be a wanderer. And you're going to try everything in your power and control to hold on to something that doesn't even matter. And I think that is the biggest distraction that I go through, man. Like, individually. Like, I know I don't want to leave my 9 to 5 to really have faith enough to surrender and just do what God wants me to do. But then the logic part of me in America makes me think that I got to keep going to the job in order for things to, and that's true. I'm not saying it's not true, but I think we tussle with that. And I think in those circumstances, the devil can easily distract us with stress and worry when we're still going to that job. And oh well, how I'm gonna pay this when I gotta go here, how I'm gonna do this. And those are very valid questions, but why we not asking God about them? And I'm just sitting over here like just imagining the devil just playing on the TV, turning the channel, trying to get you to watch it. You know what I'm saying? How about this? You don't like this? Okay, hold on. And on a different note, it could be different voices in your life popping up. And I know JG was just talking about like when he was fasting, he texted me this. He's like, yeah, somebody at work was just asking like, oh yeah, why you not eating? And I think like again, from my perspective, the devil can easily distract you because I'm gonna be real. Nobody asking me anything when I'm doing crazy stuff. Y'all just act like everything normal. So when I start showing discipline and obedience, people start speaking up. And the devil just switching the channel on you like, yeah, say this, say this, say this. And he just controlling different people. And we got to have discernment whether we want to interact and engage with that, or it could deter us from God. And that's why I think it's so interesting, like listening to y'all. Like, I'm like, bro, the devil has a very easy job. And we make it very easy for him as well. Because we easily just give in. I easily folded during my fast off a simple financial thing. Off my mom saying, we going to Philly, like we going to the hometown, you don't want to get a cheesesteak? And it's like, I mean, I want a cheesesteak, but like, do you understand what's going on? And I don't need to, I should have discerned and just said no and shut it down. Because if I continue to do that, God is going to continue to pour into me more and use me as a vessel. But if I easily let the devil just distract me, man, and win a couple battles, he just turning my ship slowly and slowly in the opposite direction without me even really knowing. What y'all think about that?
To be fair, like while I was fasting, I was not in Philly and ain't nobody offered me no cheesesteak. So like, don't like I'm not as strong as you might perceive, my brother, because boy, let me tell you something. Don't take me nowhere near Philly if I'm fasting. That fast is over. I'm not going. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Hey,
boy.
that gotta be the most realest thing JG does.
Listen.
Hey, that's how. Hey, that's self-awareness.
I'm gonna tell you right. Don't even say the word Philly around me on a fast, my brother, because I like.
But when you really think about that, though, it's more to that, and that's funny as I don't know what. But I'm sitting here thinking, it's like, well, what's really on the other side of that fast for me individually? Pretty much, I gotta go all these places, be tired as I don't know what, and drained that I don't have the energy to fast. And like I'm like, I know God is trying to like get to me right now, but I just am so distracted with all these things going on that I can't just give him my time. But to your point, JG, it's not for everybody when certain things are going on. You're gonna bow out, you're gonna fold, and that's why it's like that cheesesteak example is just the enemy. Like, let me just throw this word out there. I ain't even show you the cheesesteak yet, bro. We still in Virginia.
Oh wow, yeah, okay, yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Like, you know what I mean? So it's just the word that we going to Philly and it's a cheesesteak involved, and that's why it's like he can use different things to throw at you just to distract you, just to get you off. So I really appreciate.
Yeah, well, and think about this, bro. Like when Jesus was led into the wilderness by the Spirit before he began his earthly ministry. He fasted 40 days and 40 nights, right? And then the devil showed up to tempt him when he was at his weakest. So it's like, this is kind of like, hopefully, like we're able to make that connection. Like the devil is showing up at times where he thinks that we're weak, right? And so the solution is not to put on any type of portrayed strength or to even try to be strong in our own power in those moments, because the word says in our weakness, God's strength is made perfect. So that's, again, we're going back to leaning on God and not our own understanding. We're putting all of our faith in him. Like there are moments where there's a lot of moments where we won't be able to be strong. We're empowered by the Spirit. We're empowered by God through his Spirit who dwells inside of us. So we don't have to be strong in those moments. We can embrace that weakness and turn to God, because his strength is made perfect in our weakness. When I am weak, he is strong. And then another thing you said about we don't ask questions really stood out to me, because I immediately thought of the garden, like the Garden of Eden. So you said, the devil has an easy job. He just distracts us. He's crafty. He's deceitful, right? So he makes us question. He makes us question God's word in the moment. And that's when it's on us to turn to God. See, like if Adam and Eve had intimate relationship with God, so much so that when he was walking in the garden, they knew he was coming. They knew the sound of his steps and his gait, like in the garden, just come like approaching them, right? So that's how deep and intimate the relationship was between them. So it's like you said, we don't ask questions. All they had, where was God? Like, why didn't they see? Like, imagine if they had just sought out God in that moment. Like, they had that type of relationship where they could have just been like, hey, I don't really remember what you said when you said what you said. So can you just refresh my memory? You know what I mean? Because I don't want to make this mistake. If we're not supposed to eat from this tree, the fruit from this tree, I want to double check. Like, and the crazy part about that too was Adam was standing right there, and Eve didn't ask him a question, and Adam didn't speak up, right? And the command was given to Adam.
So you saying like we got to be communicating in real time?
Yeah, because what the word says, we should be prayerful at all, remain prayerful at all times, and always be praying for all believers all around the world. Okay, today I was listening to the next part. I'm behind in the series, but the next part of the Michael Todd series, and he was talking about God starting 5, and prayer is in God starting 5, and he was talking about praying every morning, praying every night, goes to praying throughout the day. And he goes, for me, it's praying in each and every moment. So you're just in constant dialogue and conversation with God. Like, one of the things that I forget where I got this from, but it was either from the Spirit or it was from something I heard, but just like, just as soon as I wake up, before I do anything else, just connecting with the Holy Spirit, just like immediately, like calling on the Spirit and starting the day, like before you brush your teeth, before you do whatever it is that you do in the morning, you on the immediate wake up. Let me get aligned right now. Let me submit my day right here, right now, and get connected with the Spirit. And that's kind of sets the tone for now you can be in constant conversation, because you established that connection at the very first thing you did. You didn't allow anything else to happen in your day without starting with that connection. And so I think that's a valuable thing, especially when you could get swept away in the busyness of life and just go on autopilot. Like, now you just revert to what you know. It's like a reflex. So what do we have to do? Why don't we change what that reflex is? Let's change our reflex from leaning on our own understanding to being connected with God constantly and being sensitive to the voice of the Holy Spirit. So we don't have to be strong. So we don't have to be smart, and we can find rest. We don't have to always be at the top of our game. Like, we can rest in the finished work of Jesus and just allow the Spirit to guide us into what we should be doing. Like, to answer the issues that we're faced with, and to honor God in everything that we do. Like, we're not going to be able to honor God in our own strength. Like, it's the promptings of the Spirit that lead us to obedience anyway. It's not anything within us. Everything in us is wicked. Like, our heart is deceitful above everything else. And we already talk about how out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaks. So it's like, you have to be purposeful in injecting God into your heart, into your day. And so for me, that means just starting the day. Like, now I don't do it every day. Like, I don't want to come across like I'm some super Christian, but like, I try to be as intentional as I can about establishing that connection very first thing in the morning, because I'm just learning more and more, and God is revealing to me more and more that, like, His grace is sufficient, and like, I can't do anything apart from Him. So like, I would rather lean on that, honestly, because I didn't come up short too many times to count for real.
And my bad, I want to go because I want to let you go. But JG, what you mentioned, kind of, and I feel like I want to ask that in a sense to the group too, because sometimes if we go back to what Spencer was talking about at the beginning, sometimes we're trying to be so much in control because sometimes we're just in our thoughts and we're just thinking, like, what could I have done? What could I do here? But sometimes you mentioned like we don't want to be too busy as well because then we're not being intentional. But sometimes I feel like people are being busy to avoid those thoughts, right? Because they're trying to figure out how to let go and not be so controlled of everything. So they're trying to distract themselves of those things. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword here because it's like we need to make sure we're being intentional and we need to make sure that we're being still at the same time. But sometimes when we're still, all we're thinking about is, man, how could I have controlled the situation? And in a sense, now those thoughts dominate. Now they have dominion, and now because of that, we're not letting God be God. And so I feel like sometimes it's like, do we block the noise and be still and try to like not have that, or do we be busy and so we can let God be God by staying busy and just trying to do everything else? And sometimes it's the right things, sometimes it's the wrong thing. I don't know, but I feel like that's sometimes what happens, right? Because it's like, man, I don't want to be in my thoughts, so I'm gonna just go do stuff and I'm just gonna be busy. But at the same time, like, we're not being intentional when we do that. But then when we are intentional, how do we let go? How do we make sure that we're not trying to play our role and play God's role when we're just being still and trying to be intentional?
Yeah, you talking right there, boy.
Discernment.
Woo.
Discernment. Discernment. Block out the noise, Spence. Block out the noise.
All I heard at the competition.
So that's a great question. My quick answer is discernment. It's hard as I don't know what, but I think you got to have discernment through the spirit and talking to God. I think it's always going to be difficult, though. I don't think it's always going to be one way. To your point, it's going. I think you're really going to have some deep discernment on some things, on when to speak, when to do something, when not to do something, when to interact, when to engage, when to not engage. I think it has a lot to do with discernment, bro, and really being able to feel God's presence and know which way He's leading you and which way He's telling you to stop. Like Spencer's example, like last episode, like I just keep running through the stop sign. Like, just can't keep running through the stop sign. It's going to be an accident at some point in time, right? But we're not discerning that there's a sign here, whether you can see the color of it or not. It's not really about that. It's, don't you see something that says the word stop on it? Why are you worried about the color? Well, it's not red, so let me just keep driving. And I think that's where that power and control, man, just comes in play. But what you thinking over there, Spence?
No, I'm glad Shad asked that question because I think that's something I deal with. Because I'm an overthinker. I be in my thoughts. Because I said earlier, I'm a solution-based person. When I'm faced with a problem, I'm trying to find a way to fix it, to solve it, and I be in my thoughts trying to figure out, all right, how I'm gonna fix this problem today, how I'm gonna do this, how I'm gonna do that, and sometimes I can get too busy. My wife says, she said it yesterday. I went to work, went in, refed at the YMCA, came home, and then started washing the vehicles. She said, "You going to wash the vehicles now? You don't give yourself no time to rest." And I think, like Rail said, is you have to have that discernment and know when to be busy and know when to be still, because you can't do both. You can't do both. And also, I wanted to add on to Rail's point about the devil having an easy job. And my bad, JG, but I think that the tricks of the devil, he can make it appear that things are going well. I think that you have all the money, the career, the house, the family, all of this, and you thinking your life is going well. I'm achieving all my goals and all the things my heart desires, but on the inside, your spirit life is suffering. You're not praying. You're not giving thanks to God where everything is coming from. You're not going to church. You're not praying. You're not doing the things that are of God. But whole time in a compare that your life is picture perfect, but it's really not. You're not. It's that trick that the devil is playing on you, making it seem like you have everything, but you really don't.
Yo,
You can go
so
ahead,
like
JG.
one of the ways that we can bring ourselves to kind of into a place of submission to God is to remember some of the things that have happened in the past. some of the great works that he's done in the past, but also the failures of man in the past, specifically as illustrated in the Bible. I'll give you an example. The whole book of Judges, there was no king during those times that ruled over Israel. Judges, in Judges, basically there was no king to lead Israel because God wanted the people to turn to him to be their king and to follow him. But all the nations around them had a king, so Israel wanted a king. So during this time in the book of Judges, that's what they would call the people who would lead Israel. They would call them judges. So it would be like several different judges throughout the book. And so so it was just a cycle of Israel would stray from the ways of God. They would worship idols. They would worship the gods of the people around them. They would come under the rule of the people around them. They would cry out to God. God would deliver them. They would worship God. And then they would go back to straying from God's ways, forgetting about God, and worshiping these idols. And so it was just this repeated thing. And so whenever they would cry out, God would raise up a judge that would deliver them, like Samson. Deborah was another one. There were several throughout the book, right? Then you get to, so this cycle of the surrounding nations subjecting the people of Israel to their rule went on. And then God would deliver Israel. He would give them victory over their enemies. Eventually, they wiped out most all their enemies. The end of the book of Judges, they just couldn't, they went from fighting the surrounding nations to fighting each other, to the point where they wiped out almost the entire tribe of Benjamin. I think they said they only left 400 men escaped into the wilderness just to hide. They just beyond what was ordained by God, because God did say that God did give his blessing to Judah in that fight. I think it was Judah, but basically it was tribes of Israel fighting against each other. The Benjamites get wiped out except for 400. They get chased off into the wilderness and hide. Basically it says, now in those days Israel had no king and everyone did what was right in his own eyes. And that's how the entire book, that's how the last verse of the last chapter in Judges ends. Those days Israel had no king and every man did what was right in his own eyes. So when we start to bring it back to where we started, when we're leaning on our own understanding, we're doing what's right in our own eyes. We are not following God in the path that he has set before us. We're not submitting to God's will when we're leaning on our own understanding. We're not having faith and trust in God that he's going to deliver us or put us in the correct situation or elevate us to the level that he would have us at. We're trying to do it on our own. So we're doing what's right in our own eyes. And that's our pride getting in the way, because we think we know best. This is our life, right? We're living it. But when you don't have the correct perspective about offering your life to God, as it says countless times throughout the Bible, I have all these verses, man. But offer yourself as a living sacrifice. Offer your life to God. Some of these in Isaiah were, listen to the wording of these. Isaiah chapter 45, verse 9. What sorrow awaits those who argue with their creator? Does a clay pot argue with its maker? Does the clay dispute with the one who shapes it, saying, "Stop, you're doing it wrong"? Does the pot exclaim, "How clumsy can you be"? Okay. Isaiah chapter 64, verse 8. And yet, O Lord, you are our Father. We are the clay, and you are the potter. We all are formed by your hand. Okay. So, that right there, we're referred to in, I believe it's Corinthians, as jars of clay with treasure inside, with the treasure being the Holy Spirit. But we were, the first man was literally made from dust. Adam was created from dust. That's why when you die, or when people die, they say, from dust you came, from dust to dust you shall return. Chapter 45, verse 9, does a clay pot argue with its maker? When God is showing you the way and trying to lead you into something that is to prosper you, not to harm you, why are we arguing? Why are we pushing back against what God is telling us to do? Is it because that we're not in control? Is it because that we're not able to properly discern that it would be better to follow his ways and not our own, all you have to do is look back in the word. Look at Judges. Judges is a quick read. You can get through the chapter of Judges in a week. I mean, the book of Judges in a week. And you can see like the depravity of Israel during that time, and how even when God delivered them in impossible situations. Think about Gideon. The story of Gideon is in Judges. And he defeated an army of tens of thousands with 300 men. God delivered the enemy into his hand. He had 300 men who were with him. And God intentionally whittled down the size of his army to 300 men so that he could get glory. And so Israel couldn't be like, man, we were the underdogs. We really scrapped and fought our way through and we overcame. Like God said, no, if you had too many men, you would try to take the credit. He was like, you're going to go with 300 and insurmountable odds so that I'm going to get all the glory. And even after that, like, they still repeated that cycle and turned back to worshiping other gods. Like, it wasn't even long after the victory. So to be reminded of God's capabilities of delivering us out of our circumstances and delivering us from our times of trouble, we only need to look back in the Word. There's plenty of examples in the Old Testament.
Well, JJ, we're gonna take it further. I mean, I don't know how far after Judges, but I think to answer your question, why we can't do those things, I think a lot of us want to be King Saul, bro. We want to be the first king. We want to be the first to have generational wealth and have a royal family and and just be the center of attention. And JG can look for it while I'm talking, but just the verse about King Saul pretty much losing his mind and God coming back and just giving it to David. And I think a lot of the times we get so engulfed in wanting to provide for our family in a way. God can anoint us, but then we could take advantage of the anointing and ruin the opportunity to spread the word. And I think that happens to a lot of us. We soak up a lot of things that we may see in this world, or we may get into a position of power and the money, and we're rich, and we now accomplish what we thought we can accomplish on earth with or without God, or God has put me in this position. But then the high praises, the looking at me as a royal family or looking at me as a standard has now started to corrupt my mind. And that's why I think things start to break down, and the devil can easily distract us and show that deceit. And so I did want to highlight that example on how Judges ends up moving. I don't know how many chapters it is after JG and what book it's in, but it's more so just referring to how Saul was the first king of the Israelites and kind of what happened to him over time. And I don't know how long it was, but then God replaced him with David, and that's the David and Goliath story, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Saul was anointed king by Samuel in 1 Samuel chapter 10. And then Saul's disobedience occurs 3 chapters later in 1 Samuel 13. And I believe, I think David was anointed king in chapter 16. Yep. Beginning of 1 Samuel chapter 16, Samuel anoints David as king. So Saul is named the first king of Israel in chapter 10. So again, we're not going by time, like actual time, but just in terms of reading. In chapter 10, he's named Israel's first king. Chapter 13, he's disobedient. Chapter 16, David is anointed as the next king. And in the midst of that, because of his disobedience, God allows an evil spirit to torment Saul, leading up to David being anointed as the next king.
And just think about that torment that we go through. That torment is the death, is the control of death and the control of money and power. And I want to hear, Shad and Spencer's perspective based on everything that me and JG just said, just about that transition and kind of how that applies to today's time, because it's still the same things, no matter how you try to apply it.
No, honestly, I'm sitting here listening, and it's like you mentioned how we can get corrupt with that money and that power, and it's that, like I said, the tricks of the devil, and it's everything God blesses us with can easily be taken away at the snap of a finger because he's that powerful. And if we don't give thanks to God and lean into Him and give thanks to where everything comes from, He can easily take it away and we can fall into the hands of the devil.
And God just allowing the evil spirit to torment you. That means He has authority over the enemy. No matter how we try to swindle it, like it doesn't matter. Like you might be getting tormented by God because you're being disobedient. And it's you wondering why you keep going through the same stuff over and over. Things keep happening to you. It might be the enemy, but God might be letting the evil spirit go ahead, and He might not protect you so that you can lean on Him more. So I don't know. It's just interesting. What you think, Shy?
Nah, I think what y'all saying is facts. I think if you are obedient and you're focusing on what you need to focus, kind of going back to the topic of everything, letting God be God. If you stay obedient to what you have to do, let God focus on what He has to do. In a sense, that will put you on the track that you need to be on. And whatever situation, whether it's a situation of finances, whether it's a situation of family, whether it's a situation of anything that we have as false idols that we can remove from our life. If we stay obedient to God and make sure that our attention is directly there, if the devil tries to come and move his way in, it's get away from me, Satan. You have no power here. You have no dominion here. And then you keep on focusing on what's supposed to be the most important thing. And I think when we're obedient, that's a lot easier to do than when we're fading away and we're not being obedient. You're either moving towards God or you're drifting away. There's never no stay still and you're in one spot. You're either moving towards Him and you're being obedient, or you're drifting the opposite direction. And when you start drifting, then it's easier for the devil to play tricks on you. When you're being obedient in all things, it's easy to identify what Satan is and tell him you have no power here, be gone from here. And so as long as you are being obedient and you're focused on being Christ-like yourself and as close to God as possible, you can focus, you can have more power in your tongue to control your thoughts of any of those distractions that may be coming that the devil may be trying to play tricks on you and put into your mind.
You just gotta. Oh, go ahead.
That's real. And go ahead.
I think I mean, we've talked about this before on a previous episode. I can't remember which one, but like, would you want to discern where your thoughts or your like, if whatever you're thinking about, if you want to discern where that's coming from, Galatians 5 is a good guide for that. And again, we've referenced this before. Let me pull it up because I was just thinking about that as Shaw was talking. So Galatians 5 lists the acts of the sinful nature versus the fruit of the Spirit. Galatians chapter 5, verse 16. So I say, let the Holy Spirit guide your lives. Then you won't be doing what your sinful nature craves. So then it goes on to list what the sinful nature wants. The sinful nature wants to do evil, which is just the opposite of what the Spirit wants. And the Spirit gives us desires that are opposite of what the sinful nature wants. So when you follow this is bumping down to verse 19. When you follow the desires of your sinful nature, the results are very clear. Sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, sorcery, hostility, quarreling, jealousy, outbursts of anger, selfish ambition, dissension, division, envy, drunkenness, wild parties, and other sins like these. Let me tell you again, as I have before, that anyone living that sort of life will not inherit the kingdom of God. But the Holy Spirit produces this kind of fruit in our lives: love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. There is no law against these things. So when you're wrestling or struggling in your thought life, you could just refer to Galatians 5, starting in verse 16, and you can weigh it against the desires of the sinful nature versus the fruit of the Spirit. If the result of that thought leads to love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control, did I miss one in there? Faithfulness? I might have missed one in there. But if the result of that thought is leading to one of the fruit of the Spirit, okay, then that's of God, or that is something that will honor God. If it's not one of those and it leads to sexual immorality, impurity, lustful pleasures, idolatry, etc., then that's the sinful nature. So that it right there, not an easy way to discern, we'll say simple. It's a simple way to discern what that thought is and how to react to that thought. We've talked about, I think before, every thought captive and making obedient to Christ. This is kind of what that's referring to. Is it going to lead to the desire? Is this of your desires of your sinful nature, which is supposed to be crucified with Christ, your old self? Or is this leading to producing fruit? So yeah, Galatians chapter 5, verse 16 through 23.
Appreciate you, JG. Yeah, I'm just last thing before we get to Spencer's notepad, man. I'm just thinking about what you and Shad are referring to, and I'm sitting over here thinking of a body of water, bro. Y'all know me, going to the swimming analogy from multiple episodes at this point, and I think Shad analogy of drifting away. It's easy to drift away in a large body of water. You don't have to do anything, and it's easy for the enemy to get to you, you know, whether that's a shark or anything in the water. It's harder to swim. It's harder to really have faith and try to find some land. And I think God just wants us to start swimming. And before we know it, He's going to deliver it to us. We have an inheritance waiting for us. It's in the Word for all of us. He has a promise that He's kept over and over again. And I just think that's a pivotal point to make just based on this conversation. But anything else before we get into Spencer's notepad?
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of go like a lot of the scriptures that I was looking over in preparation for the episode really just have to deal with humility and humbling yourself before God. And so when you're talking about let God be God in your life, that means that you are not God of your life. You are not in control of your life to a certain degree. You're only in control of like not even your obedience, because that's even prompted by God. So honestly, like the word is clear that in order to let God be God in our lives, that requires humility. We have to Luke 9:23, if any of you wants to be my follower, you must give up your own way, take up your cross daily and follow me. Commit everything you do to the Lord, trust Him, and He will help you. That's Psalm 37:5. He must become greater and greater, and I must become less and less. John 3:30. And then remember let's go back to when we said, who's the standard? Like, what's the standard, right? Jesus is the standard for us, for Christians. So look at how Jesus approached with being fully God and fully man. Jesus said in John chapter 5, verse 30, I can do nothing on my own. I judge as God tells me. Therefore, my judgment is just because I carry out the will of the one who sent me, not my own will. And then Philippians chapter 2, verses 5 through 8. You must have the same attitude that Christ Jesus had. Though He was God, He did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, He gave up His divine privileges. He took the humble position of a slave and was born as a human being. When He appeared in human form, He humbled Himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross. Okay, so letting God be God in your life requires humility, and in Jesus' case, to the point of, giving His life on the cross.
Appreciate you, JG. Shad, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, appreciate that, JG. Rail to what you said. You said, you got to start swimming. But once you start swimming, you got to keep swimming. When those things come, when that cramp come while you swimming, those distractions in life come, you got to keep swimming. Like you said, because otherwise, as soon as you stop, before you even started, you start drifting his way. So make sure you keep swimming too.
That's a fact, because the devil gonna stir up some waves, whether you want that to happen or not. Go ahead, Spence. My fault.
No, you're good. Just as y'all were talking real quick, it just brought me back to growing up. It was a song at my church that we used to sing called "Order My Steps," and it's just letting God order your steps. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. So Shah spoke on being obedient. Let God order your steps. Be obedient to God and let God order your steps. Let God be God in your life. Let Him lead. Let Him order your steps. Let Him tell you which way to walk, which steps to take, and you'll be just fine.
That's a fact, bro. That's a fact. It's another verse in Deuteronomy. I just read about that, bro. So that's crazy you said that, man. Anybody else before we get into Spencer's notepad? All right, Spence. Let's see what you got jotted down today, brother.
All right. Real quick before we get started, for all the listeners, follow us on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at Wholesome Thinking Pod. Like, comment, subscribe, DM us. We love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your opinions, perspectives, and also some topics that you would love to hear us talk about. So that's at Wholesome Thinking Pod on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Um, Spencer's notepad. I wrote down can't control everything. This is my notes before we got started. Finding myself trying to make my own path. Um, I'm wired as a problem solver and solution based, but every situation can't be handled in the same manner. It's easier when it's me and harder when it's people that I care about to not control things. Um, control the controllables. Shah mentioned his word of the year was release. Um, Real, you mentioned surrender everything to God. It's difficult to surrender everything. JG, you mentioned into God for all understanding, all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct our path. Being sensitive to the voice of the Holy Spirit. Needs times faith equals motivation. Putting people and others before God in your life. In the course of our life, we will do more failing than succeeding. We don't lose, we learn. Why do we start acting funny when money and death are involved? I mentioned the emotional attachment along the similar lines of Shad. Um, Shad mentioned the control money and death has on us, makes us lose focus. Um, JG mentioned that with death, it's the fear of the unknown. And JG mentioned with money, it's taking ownership of the money can be dangerous to your spirit and not stewarding your money. And knowing that all things come from God. The devil has an easy job tempting us. The devil can distract us with stress and worry. The devil attacks when we are at our weakest. Remain prayerful at all times. We try to be in control so much because always in our thoughts. Shah posed the question, do we be busy or do we be still? Rail mentioned block out the noise. JG mentioned remember some of the works of God in the past and remember the failures of men in the past. Does a clay pot argue with its maker? Being obedient to God, he will order your steps in every aspect of your life. And it's easy to drift away in water and harder to swim. You got to keep swimming.
Appreciate you, Spence. What you think? This was your topic, bro. What do you think your biggest takeaway from the day was?
I think what really stuck out to me was Shad mentioned about overthinking and we being in my thoughts because I think that's really me. I tend to overthink. I'm analyzing every situation, every outcome, and that can sometimes do more harm than good. And so I think that's probably the most that the number one thing that kind of stuck out today. Your analogy with it's easy to drift away in water and harder to swim. That kind of stuck out with me. And JG's analogy of taking ownership of money. This is my hard-earned money because I say that a lot. This is my money. I'm spending on what I want. So those are probably the three things that kind of stood out to me in this episode.
Word. Okay. Okay. Shad and JG. Before we get into the encouragement for the week, let's share with the audience kind of what our takeaways were.
For me, it's the constant reminder of my word of the year and what you all were sharing, right? And it's a constant reminder of release, in the sense of things that are in the secular world, but also in the sense of being obedient to God. And I think that was a big theme of the night. Just hearing from all three of you actually was what are we doing to be obedient and capping the distractions or capping the devil of what he's trying to put into us to kind of have us removing God from being God in our lives. And so it was the constant reminder for me just throughout of how to focus on releasing that control, releasing that feeling of being, in a sense, almost playing God by making sure I'm focused on being obedient in all things in life. So I appreciate all of y'all because that's definitely what I'm walking away from and thinking about tomorrow and throughout the week as well is, how obedient am I being and day to day.
Appreciate you, Shad. What about
I
you,
just,
JG?
my mindset has been, what can I give up? What is like, what's in the way? And I think that that's been kind of magnified through our conversation tonight. I'm just listening to y'all talk, and again, I wasn't on the last episode, so like I'm just thinking about the early pods, the pilot, and until now, and kind of just hearing the growth in all of us. This podcast is a reflection of what we're dealing with in our day-to-day lives. We're not discussing abstract topics, you know what I mean? This is stuff that's really happening and that we're dealing with, and we're just kind of sharing our experiences and thoughts on this platform. And so to kind of hear the differences in the conversations and the lessons that we're taking away from these experiences now as opposed to when we first started is notable. Like, I can hear it. I can hear the growth, and I hope the audience can hear the growth as well. And that just makes me want to further remove any and all things that are between me getting into a deeper, closer relationship with God. And I'm really feeling in my spirit right now like we can just be godly examples for others, hopefully, because there were examples of godly men, I believe, for all of us as we were growing up, but there were also a lot of examples of people trying to do things their own way, and doing what was right in their own eyes, as it was phrased in the word. And that what made me think of that was that analogy. Like, it's easy to drift when you're in water. Water's going to go where it's going to go. And when you're in the water, like this is actually a visual representation of it on the beach with the strong currents. We would get in there and swim, man. I would get in there. My kids would get on the boogie boards, and man, you be out there, yeah, drifting, right? You look up and it's like, hold on, where our chairs at? Where you know what I'm saying? Where, you far down the ways on the beach. So you're gonna drift where the water takes you. And it's easy to drift where the crowd goes, and where those people, depending on who you surround yourself with, when they start going in one direction and you're part of that crowd, it's easier to go with the crowd than to go against it. You know what I'm saying? So if the crowd is drifting away from God and doing their own thing, it's easy because you in the crowd. It's easy to go with it. It's harder to stand firm on your faith and be like, nah, I'm not doing this. We should be moving closer to God. We should be honoring God. We should be doing it God's way and not our own way. So that's really where, that's what it made me think of. Is like, let's be that example in our communities for real, and really live out, like you said, to take it back to what you said at the beginning, real, like, let's live out the things that we're talking about for real.
That's a fact, man. And I think for me, my biggest takeaway is that it's just like I just want to live what I'm talking about, and to continue the visual of a beach. Like, from my perspective, God is the one that released us into the water. You know what I'm saying? Into this world. And he's just on the beach. The beach is his kingdom, right? You start off as an infant, you just playing in the sand, and as you get older, you start being old enough to walk, and you in the shallow end, bro. And as you're walking into the water, your feet start to sink into the ground that has no foundation necessarily. But when you were standing on the beach, you had a lot of foundation where you were. And then when you start getting older, you just start trying to test the wave. I want to go bigger. But to Jerron's point, you start kind of drifting away. And God is just waving at you in the water like, just come back to me. Just come back to me. And we got to try everything to get our feet back on the sand instead of letting the wave just take over. We just tumbling in the ocean, and the water letting us just keep drifting and drifting. And a lot of us been drifting for years. And a lot of us can sometimes go ahead and get back to the shallow part of the beach, but then we're like, oh, it's another big wave. Let me go have some more fun, and we just continue drifting away. So I think my biggest takeaway is that I just want to get back to those kingdom principles and live them every day. So I'm fighting to get back to shore, Rashad. I am swimming towards it. I don't want to drift anymore. I'm tired of drifting, man. And sometimes I just want to drift because I'm tired and I just want to rest. And naturally, that's the natural state that the devil wants us in, is just, yeah, I know you're tired. Just go to sleep. Waste another day. and we continue to think that we could keep swimming another day tomorrow, and like the biggest storm might be tomorrow that might take you away from here. Like, don't you just at least want to start swimming so you got some endurance for the storm? So that's kind of my biggest takeaways from today, man. But appreciate y'all takeaways today. I wanted to do something different just to kind of figure out what y'all thinking based on the concept, because a lot of times people don't get to hear kind of what our takeaways are. But anything else before we get into the encouragement for the week?
One more thing, just you said you sometimes you just want to rest. Like let's have our rest in Christ. You know what I'm saying? Like we have access to that. And so when you rest in Him, work don't really feel like work. Like He really do be like carrying you through your tasks and obligations for real. So when those times when you feel like you want to rest, let's be intentional about entering His rest. You know what I'm saying? And allowing Him to refresh and rejuvenate us so that we can get back to what He has us doing.
Doubt. Appreciate you sharing that, JG. All right, man. Well, let's get into the encouragement for the week. Who want to start us off?
I can start us off. So I know it was kind of brought up, and I know we didn't really talk about it, but if you're someone that you feel like you have to have control of everything, or you're beating yourself up because you can't control everything, just take the pressure off of yourself. Like, give yourself some grace, give yourself some forgiveness, and focus on what you can focus on. And sometimes it's hard, but it's also hard to constantly put yourself in a fight of something that you can't win, because you can't win the uncontrollables that you have no part or say in. So just take the pressure off yourself and realize that, hey, like, it's going to be okay. It's going to work itself out. Have faith that it's going to work out, and believe it, and pray on it and confess it, and just focus and focus on what you got to focus on, and make sure all of the pressure is off of you so you can be the best version of yourself for when that favor comes, and you can make sure that you handle it. So remove that unnecessary pressure that you have, especially on the things that you have no control over, you never will, and just focus on what you can control and focus on what you can make better.
Appreciate you, Shy. Go ahead, Spence.
Shaw talking directly to me right there. I appreciate it, my boy. I needed to hear that. For me, I would say, for the people listening, God is always speaking to you, so just be sensitive and take heed to that voice, whether it's His voice or just signs and evidence. Listen and take heed to what he's trying to tell you, where He's trying to direct you and lead you to, so you can like Shaw said, be the best version of yourself. So just listen to God when He's speaking to you in those moments where you're busy or you're being still. Listen for that voice, that those signs, those evidence, so you can be the best version of yourself.
Yes, sir. Appreciate you, Spence. What you got, JG?
Yeah. So I want to kind of reference some of the my pastor at the church I attend dropped some crazy quotes that really resonated with me, and it made me think of my daughter. So when we go out as a family, wherever it may be, like my daughter is one to like she's gonna like take in the surroundings as she's on the move. She don't stop to look around, right? So what inevitably ends up happening all the time with her is she'll be turning around, looking over her shoulder, watching somebody that just walked past and something caught her eye, but she's still walking forward. Like she has no idea what's going on in front of her, right? It's like she's just not aware of what she's walking towards. So I always have to say to her, baby, like you gotta look where you're going. Like if you're gonna look around, stop and look around real quick. But if you're walking, you got to be looking in front of you so you see where you're going. And it's crazy because towards the end of the sermon, pastor said you cannot look backwards while trying to move forward. And I was like, oh wow, that sounds like what I tell baby girl all the time. But he tied it into his message, and so it really resonated with me. Like as a believer, or just even if you don't believe, just in general in life, if you're trying to progress forward in your life, you can't do that while you're worried about something that happened in the past. You can't look behind you and move forward because you don't see what's ahead of you. And so he dropped a couple more that were related. He said you have to take something off, or you have to take something old off for God to do something new. And you can't receive the new from God if your hands are full with the old. So until you let go of what was, you will never take hold of what would be. And then he referenced 2 Corinthians 5:17. This means that anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone. A new life has begun. So the encouragement is, as you are progressing in your life and moving forward with your life, you have to keep your eyes focused on what's in front of you, okay, to see what God has for you and to see how you need to navigate what's in front of you. And you can't do that when you're looking over your shoulder or looking at something that's thinking about something that happened in the past. You can't move forward into your new season while you're still thinking about what happened in the previous season. You got to let that go. That's over with and done. There's nothing you can do about it anymore. So as you're continuing to progress and move forward, keep your eyes focused on what's ahead and stop worrying about what happened in the past.
I needed to hear that, JG. I appreciate you, bro. Thanks for sharing that, dog. I think my encouragement is a challenge for the people listening, especially to the end of the episode. A lot of people don't get to the end. It's a challenge to stop chasing idols with me, man. Let's stop chasing the idols. Let's stop idolizing our salaries. Let's stop idolizing the things in this world, and let's really follow what's in the word, and let's act on those things. And let things continue to happen. Let's start creating the things and reveal the gifts that God already gave us, so we can reap the fruits that He's trying to allow us to benefit from. I think if we're chasing the idols, we'll never reap the benefits. I don't think we'll ever be able to put fruits on our tree. And I think it's time to really start walking boldly in our faith and moving things forward in our communities, piece by piece. I think we talked about the puzzle pieces last episode. And it's getting to that time, that we need to come together and start creating. And when things aren't going right in this world, and the things that we idolize we can no longer have, it might be a reason why those things are happening to us. And that deals directly with money. For me, it's death. So if you lost someone, I know it's difficult to hear, but we don't have to cling forever. We got to start leaning into God, because our time is coming up too, and we're gonna be able to revisit the ones that have passed away. To do some more work in the kingdom, the eternal kingdom. So I think that's my encouragement for this week, man. Is I just challenge everybody to just kind of stop chasing idols with me, man. Let's just do it together. The more we can do it together, the more things we can move forward in this world. But we appreciate everyone listening to episode 13, Faith Part 2. And we hope you guys enjoyed, and we hope you guys have a great week.